It's time for fun, learning, commentary, laughs, and more care of the most diverse group in the genealogy and family history world. Welcome to BlackProGen Live with your hosts, Nika and True, and the baddest panel in these pedigree streets: Angela, James, Linda, Alex, Ellen, Tony, Shelly, Teresa, Bernice, Felicia, Willie, Renata, and Tasia. It's BlackProGen Live, genealogy, family history research with flavor.
Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to your dose of genealogy with seasoning with BlackProGen Live. It's our 55th episode, and my name is True Lewis, your co-host for the evening. And I just want to welcome everybody for tuning in from all over, and thank you for taking your time out tonight. So now I'm going to turn over the mic to your host, Nika Smith.
What's going on, peeps? It's been a little while, but we're back. Good evening. Thanks so much for taking your time out on this Tuesday night, April 17th. I'm Nika Smith. Thanks so much for opening this show for us, True. How are you doing over there in kind of cold Kentucky?
Yes, it is. This weather is what my mom would say, finicky.
You know what? It actually has been sort of finicky here yesterday. I kid you not, I put my son in like full hat jacket. Like I thought it was time to like get rid of that. And then like it was probably 50. And then today was like 70. I promise the weather is like having total just breakdown issues. It's just crazy. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, let's get to the good stuff, right? While you're here. So tonight's topic: learn tips, tricks, and more for researching your ancestors in the volunteer state. You're joining us tonight for the 55th episode of BlackProGen Live, entitled People of Color in Tennessee, airing tonight. A few reminders: love or hate the new look, feel for the new show, have a question or comment, join the conversation now. Participate in the live chat on YouTube, taking place to the top right of the screen if you're watching on your computer, and at the bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Also, don't forget to weigh in on Twitter. We love to see your tweets. Be sure to tweet us at BlackProGen or use the hashtag BlackProGen. Here's your reminder to set reminders. All you need to do is head to the YouTube channel, which is just my YouTube channel, and click set reminder under the episode you're interested in, or subscribe to my channel and you'll get a reminder each and every time we go live. And a lot of people are like, man, you know what? I wish I would have known about this episode or that episode. We've got them locked and loaded for pretty much at least until July. So be sure to go over there and hit set reminders. I also see people in the chat room saying, man, I wish I knew there was a chat when my Ask Mariah got picked. Ha, you should have been watching. Going forward here, since 2013, the Midwest African American Genealogy Institute has been providing an amazing experience for genealogists and researchers. The Institute, commonly known as Maggie, is the only African American focused event offering a total of 48 classes over 3 days, offering a comprehensive genealogical educational experience of benefit for the beginner, the intermediate researcher, and the professional. Join us from July 10th through the 12th, 2018 at the Genealogy Center at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana for the 5th installment of Maggie, the Teaching Institute. For more information and to register, please visit maggieinstitute.org. All right, everybody, come off of mute and say hello to our wonderful guests joining us from all over the place. We'll start off with Miss Blue T-shirt, not blue blouse, because there is a difference. Ellen Fernandez-Sacco.
Actually, it's purple. That's okay. Hi, it's Ellen Fernandez-Sacco, Latino Genealogy and Beyond.com. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the talk.
All right. Next up, we'll do the other lady in blue tonight. Our illustrious guest here, Miss Melissa Barker.
Hello, Nika and everybody. I'm Melissa Barker. I'm the archive lady. My blog is A Genealogist in the Archives, and I have a Facebook page, The Archive Ladies. So I work as an archivist in the Houston County, Tennessee Archives.
All right. Next up, we'll go for the Blob in Black, our favorite Y chromosome.
Hello. She's talking about me, everybody. But don't worry about her. Good evening, everybody. I'm James Morgan. I'm your favorite cousin's favorite cousin, and I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C.
All right, our favorite cousin's favorite cousin wearing his BlackProGen Live shirt tonight. We're going to go up north to New York, NYC, Teresa Vega.
Teresa Vega, Radiant Roots, Barriqua Branches, uptown near the Boogie Town.
Bug. All right, we're going to go back down south a little taste, as my grandmother would say, to the lady in red, always in red, Angela Walton Raji.
Hello, greetings from Maryland, out here in the Chesapeake Bay, Charm City, as we sometimes call Baltimore. And excited to be here and talk about one of my ancestral home states, Tennessee. Can't wait to hear more and learn from my colleagues.
Absolutely. Last but not least, gotta let them lay eyes on True Lewis.
Hello, everybody. It's me, True. I feel like Varnell Hill tonight. You know the episode of Martin when he says, "Did you miss me?" Because I sure missed all of you all. So I'm just glad to see the audience out there, our viewers. Y'all are so faithful. And Nika, I'm so glad you're back and you had safe travels. And yeah, so we're going to be here talking about Tennessee.
Yes, gosh. Why? I mean, it's so funny because we do these state-specific episodes all the time, right? We want to make sure that our viewers, everybody's getting the most bang for their BlackProGen buck as they possibly can. And for some reason, I don't know how I left the state that serves my driver's license off of the list of states. We were running through. I mean, we had North Carolina, South Carolina. I mean, we were just killing everything. Yeah. And then we totally forgot about the state that I actually live in, that I'm sitting in right now, along with Melissa.
Nika, is it possible because of the tax rates in Tennessee?
Well, see, that's the thing. We pay no personal income tax here.
Oh,
we pay federal only. Yes, that's one of the things that I love over California.
I might be moving there soon.
All right. Well, hey, you very well may be. Now, we do have state sales tax like everyone else. It's comparable to other states, but we do not have state income tax here. So there are some panelists who here has, by raise of hands, who here has ties to Tennessee, even if it's just a birth location and you're not exactly sure where. We've got Angela, True, James. Okay.
I probably do on my Virginia lines. Yeah,
you might. I have it as well, even though my folks are not from there. And you know what? We forgot about our chatters. We don't want to make sure we give them a shout out because ATL is in the house. Minnesota. Somebody said snowy Minnesota is in the house. I feel bad for them because one of my cousins posted a picture and she just opened up her back door and the snow was just a quarter of the way up the door in April.
All that snow.
Yeah, all that snow. I feel so bad for you guys. Sorry, Denise. I feel bad for you. We have folks tuning in from Kansas. Oh, Cleopatra Gallen. Hey, well, she's from Memphis. Melissa, somebody from M-Town here. We've got Wow with Audrey Brown tuning in from South Carolina, DMV, Indy, Dallas, Fort Worth. Oh my goodness. Gosh, Florida, Miami, Florida's in the house, another NYC. Folks giving a shout out to McMinn County, Tennessee, Haywood County. That's just right by me. All right, Haywood County. Lots of ATL, and yeah, they're saying the hot is back in ATL. It's back here too. It's just max grading. So anywho, Tennessee, great place to do research. Awesome place to do research. I'll toss this out because I want to make sure you all have the lingo correct. There is no such thing as Central Tennessee to Tennesseans. That place does not exist. If you say Central Tennessee,
absolutely not.
Yeah, if you say Central Tennessee, people are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" That's like saying it's akin to East New Orleans. East New Orleans does not exist. It's New Orleans East. Likewise, it sounds so backwards, but likewise, Central Tennessee is Middle Tennessee.
Middle.
Okay.
Correct.
Tennessee is broken up into thirds, right? Where I'm
the
at
three grand divisions.
Yeah, the Great Grand Divisions. I'm in West Tennessee, which is Memphis, right? Jackson, gosh, let me throw out Brownsville, Dyersburg. All of that is Crockett County. A lot of people have ties to Crockett County. That's Tipton County. All that's West Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is Nashville, Smyrna. You think of Middle Tennessee State, right? If you've ever heard of MTSU, right?
Pulaski.
Yes, that's all Middle Tennessee. When you're talking East Tennessee, that is Knoxville, Chattanooga, all of that. So think along those lines, right? So just so you know, don't ever say it. Don't go into chat rooms. Don't go into message boards. You know what, chatters, do you still use message boards? I want to know. Do you still use message boards? We'll see if people do. But don't go somewhere and say, can you help me with your Central Tennessee research? Because people will laugh at you, and I don't want people to laugh at you. So let's just talk, Melissa. Can you hit on, just the basics about Tennessee history, just so we have a broad understanding of what we're talking about tonight?
The Tennessee, of course, was formed in 1796. It was the entire state of North Carolina before that time. And then all of our counties, of course, were established at all different times and dates. So you really need to check those times and dates of when they were established. For instance, Houston County, where I live, it is in Middle Tennessee, but it's in the westernmost part of Middle Tennessee. We were formed in 1871, considered a latecomer. We were formed out of 3 other counties, which is kind of unusual. We tried to get a 4th county, but they took us to court and won, so we could not get their property. So it's very important in Tennessee, like some other states, that you do your research on boundaries and when things were established. So yeah, that's important, just like in other states. But 1796 is an important date because that's when Tennessee became Tennessee out of North Carolina. So if you have, a lot of times people will say, well, my ancestors came from North Carolina. Well, did they come from North Carolina, or were they already here and became Tennesseans? So it's something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then in terms of people of color, you're not really going to find, because sometimes people will say, oh, well, my folks were probably free here. If you said Charleston or even New Orleans or even Baltimore,
yes,
I'd be with you. But Tennessee is not one of those states. It's kind of like North Louisiana, where it's like, no. So when you're talking about African American people in particular, you're talking about chattel slavery when it comes to Tennessee. And just as Melissa alluded to, Tennessee was North Carolina. So that means that if you've got ties to both states, the slaveholder may have been living in North Carolina. The state becomes Tennessee. Thus, you've got successive birth locations, and you're probably trying to reconcile that. So you may want to tap into that, especially if you start getting close to relatives that were born around 1800 or so. Right, late 1700s. If you track back to that time period, you probably, and you see North Carolina and Tennessee maybe use, like, maybe one census might have this and another one may have that, and you may be running into that statehood issue. You also are dealing with Native American groups here in Tennessee. Where I live is where the Chickasaw Nation was. We've got Chickasaw Park right here, just south of where I live. So those lands were ceded to the federal government, and we actually have the Trail of Tears through the state of Tennessee. It's an official trail that takes place. You have the Cherokee who had settled, in eastern Tennessee, and of course, they traveled across. You got to get to Arkansas, right? This is all. Anytime we talk about state-specific research, you have to have your geography together. You've got to know what was there beforehand. You've got to know when territories and other things were created. Something else I'll also throw out there. I always forget the URL, but there's a website that's got the census years and how each place changed, what county was carved out. I use that all the time. We'll have to find the link while we're discussing other things, so you guys have that. But that's something that I use in my research a lot. Anything else you want to throw in about people of color? Because I've hit the two major ones that most of our audience is going to be talking about. Is going to be Native American people, and it's going to be African Americans or people of color who were involved in slavery. Am I forgetting anything? I mean, I think I'm pretty much hitting it, because Tennessee's pretty straightforward.
It is. I would like to throw out something that a lot of researchers do not realize, and that is with our vital records, and mainly birth and death records. Birth and death records, there wasn't a law to record those until 1908. And I've typed this up so I would not forget. However, the 4 largest cities in the state of Tennessee kept earlier birth and earlier death records. Those are Memphis, which is Shelby County. Their birth records, they have them back to 1874. Nashville, Davidson County has them back to 1881. Chattanooga, which is Hamilton County, 1879. And Knoxville, which is Knox County, back to 1881. A lot of researchers do not know that. And if you are looking for a birth record for the year 1913, you can stop now, because the law that required birth and death records expired at the end of 1912. And so they weren't required to record them. So guess what? They didn't in 1913. Then it resumed in 1914. So there's a little caveat there to some of those vital records that I always like to tell researchers.
Yeah, and those have been great for me. It's just someone who was born in Chattanooga and then that were part of the Great Migration out. Typically we think, anyone born before 1910, it's kind of hit or miss when it comes to a birth record, especially in certain southern states. Don't rule those out, especially if they were living in Memphis proper, Knoxville, Chattanooga, a number of different places. Something else I would also like to say is I refer to Tennessee as like, it's a transient state. At least in my research, I've seen that people will travel through Tennessee, stay for like 5 seconds, and then leave. They'll be like, "Oh, I had enough. Okay, I'm gone." So usually people coming from Virginia, they stop here, then they go to Mississippi or they go to Louisiana. People will come from the Carolinas, come into Tennessee, and then either go back or go somewhere else. It really is like a transient pass-through state. It's almost like BART. The metro, like a station, so to speak, that I've seen. Have you come in contact with that as well, Melissa?
I have. And there's also another phenomenon that I picked up. Don't tell anybody. I know that's just between me and you, but I'm not from here.
I'm not either.
I know, don't tell anybody, but I was actually born in Massachusetts. My dad was in the Air Force, so I was born in Massachusetts. I didn't come to Tennessee till I was like 10 years old. But my husband's family's been here forever, and I've been researching his family. And there's a phenomenon that happens if you have African American ancestors that have lived in Tennessee up to 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They would go to, in the winter times, they would go to Illinois, Missouri, Michigan for work. And then in the summertime, they would come back and they would work their farms or things like that. And you would be amazed. There are actually streets in Michigan that all of the people from like Houston County lived on that particular street. They actually congregated together like that. So not only what Nika says is true, this kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, short-term migration, or I don't know what you'd call it, but and they would go back and forth. And so there will be records in those northern states as well.
Melissa, are these people who were from primarily the larger cities who went for employment, or are these people from rural communities?
Rural communities, because Houston County, where I live, is very rural, as Nika was talking about. This is the place, especially today, where people drive through to get to somewhere else. And when I ask, do you know where Houston County is? No, I don't know where Houston County is. It used to be a very vibrant county because we had a railroad came through here. Not anymore. No, rural counties. And so I'm always pointing everyone, including African-American researchers, to Illinois, Missouri, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. My husband was born in Detroit, Michigan. My son-in-law was born in the same hospital in Detroit, Michigan, although he's not from Tennessee. But they would go work in the copper factories. They would work in all the factories in Michigan, and then they would come back to their properties here, and they would have their farms, their crops, and then they'd go back to Michigan. And it happened over and over, year after year. So you will find records in these northern states as well.
A question from the chat room: was there ever recorded migration of planters mid 1800s to Texas? I would say yes, because it seemed like everybody was going to Texas at that time because it was it opened up. That would be my short answer, would be yes. And especially if you're doing slavery era research, would be, of course, you always have to trace the slave owning family in order to find out or to verify where your folks were from. Anything you want to add to that as well, Melissa?
No, I agree with what you said. Yes, that when Texas opened up, they did.
And then the cotton trade, King Cotton.
Yes. Yes. Another thing to keep in mind too, some researchers that, if you don't know, Tennessee, a lot of people think Tennessee was a strictly Confederate state, and it was not. It was Confederate and Union. There were Union regiments here as well. I'll tell a real quick funny story. My husband's great-great-grandfather lived here, and when I was an early researcher and did not know any better, I found that he had joined an Illinois regiment, and I thought, why would he travel all the way to Illinois to join a regiment? Come to find out, at the Battle of Fort Donelson, which is only 20 minutes from where I live in Stewart County, Tennessee, he joined the Illinois regiment when they came to Fort Donelson, which is a Union regiment. And so we had Union regiments here in Tennessee, and when they came to Tennessee for battles, people here would enlist.
Well, that's the same way that U.S. colored troops also were recruited, and there are quite a few from Tennessee.
Yes.
Of course, Uncle Cephas, who I could take a whole rest of the show, but I won't. Could talk Middle Tennessee, and when a Union regiment came through, it was their opportunity, and they all enlisted together. And there's an awful lot of certainly history on the regiments, the battles, a lot of things that happened, particularly in Middle Tennessee, that southern part near the Alabama state border.
Yes.
I have a question. What is Tennessee's history regarding like black newspapers and whatnot, if any? I'm sure they had some, but
of course, I mean, you got to think of Ida B. Wells. She was based here in Memphis. Her whole anti-lynching campaign was started here in Memphis, and she wasn't even from Tennessee. She was from Holly Springs, Mississippi, which is just south of where I live. But outside of the major cities, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would imagine you'd be hard pressed. That would be something that I would probably head to Chronicling America just to look at the newspaper database to see if there was something else there for that.
Also, there was a lot of activity from a number of the benevolent societies who had their own publications. Mosaic Templars, Knights and Daughters of Tabor, Knights and the 12 Daughters of Tabor, and on and on. They had their own newspapers, some of which are actually online. In fact, I have found, I know several, and there was a lot of activity in Tennessee. So I would say that you have a lot of opportunity to find some information. Also remember that the National Baptist Convention is right there, I think, in Nashville. I'm not sure what part of Nashville, but it has a rich history there too, and they have their own publications as well.
The other thing I would also say as well is there were several presidents and families of presidents that sort of orbited Tennessee. In particular, you've got your boy Andrew Jackson.
Everybody's favorite, right?
That's your boy.
Yeah, I know. He sort of is my boy a little. But you've got him, huge mainstay in the Nashville area. Over here in West Tennessee, the Polk family. In fact, I've never encountered a single white person with the last name Polk. All of them are black here. They're all black.
Have you met white Washingtons? Or
Or
Jefferson.
yeah, I was about to say Jackson's I have, but yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Here in this particular area, yeah, and I know that Amelia County, Virginia, in particular, there were a lot of planters that came to Hardeman County, Fayette County, and Madison County, who were from Amelia County, Virginia. They migrated here and then settled here, and then their families, just passed slaves down for several generations. What are some tips and tricks that you can think of? Or actually, before we get there, what makes Tennessee different from researching in other southern states, right? Because Louisiana, I love Louisiana research, but Louisiana is not Tennessee when it comes to online records. Like, we are so spoiled here. Like, I don't even really know if you guys know, but we really are. I mean, we've got marriages online until like 2002. Louisiana, you're not getting that at all, right? We've got death certificates online. Louisiana, no, you're not getting that. You're getting an index. And then if you're at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake, you get the certificate, but you still can't download it. They don't even let you do that. We won't even get on Mississippi. Yeah, I know. I saw Ellen's face. Yes, I'm so serious. You think you can go to the Family Search Center and get the certificate for Louisiana. You're so excited. You get there and it's like, no, you don't get it. So you actually have to go to the library to get it. It's crazy. But Tennessee, available and online. There's a lot of stuff, but what in your experience, Melissa, what do you feel is the difference between researching in Tennessee versus other places? Because for me, I feel like you could just do everything online. It seems like, or a big chunk of it you can.
Oh, I wish we were even more spoiled, because there are tons of records that are still not online. This is coming from the archivist that has shelves and shelves of records that have not been even microfilmed. So yes, it is different in that, yes, the Tennessee State Library and Archives and other repositories are working hard to get as much records online as possible. In fact, Carol Roberts, who is the conservation or conservator at the Tennessee State Library and Archives, I was at a meeting with her a few weeks ago. She made the comment, she says that archives are becoming more interested in digitization than in records conservation, which for her was kind of sad. But for me inside, the genealogist was going, yay, like that. So, but it's true. Finally, these repositories have finally gotten the clue. They need to get their records online in some form or fashion, even if it's an index, but they are moving faster. They just did not get it years ago, but they're starting to get it. With that said, for just an example, Murray County, where Columbia, I don't know if Nikki, you know where Columbia, Tennessee is. They have a fantastic archives there. Last year, they had a newspaper article out that was touting the fact that they had processed 2 million records.
Wow.
When you read down into the article, it was revealed that they still had 4 million records in storage.
In storage, that's amazing.
That is amazing. And that is something that I try to get across to researchers all the time. Yes, internet's wonderful. Go on the internet, find all you can find. But let me tell you something, you better start phone calling, emailing, visiting these county archives. One thing about Tennessee, I can tell you, the Tennessee State Library and Archives is extremely active of trying to get an archive in every county in Tennessee, a county archive in every county. When Houston County got their archives in 2010, we were one of 23 that just did not have an archive. I think now that number is down to 19. But every other county has an archive. And so you should go on to the Tennessee State Library and Archives website. They have the archives development page and shows you a map of everyone that has an archive. But that's my home away from home, is the Tennessee State Library and Archives. Go to their website. I don't know why these state archives make it so hard to find information on their website.
Yeah, it is like needle haystack. Literally threading the eye of a needle. Like,
yes.
It is.
But the Tennessee State Library and Archives actually has on their website, when you go under, what's the words out there? Yes, under Library and Archives, they have a section strictly for African American research. And there's all kinds of different guides and things to help you with your research.
And I would say we are lucky here in Hardeman County. We do have a county archives. So
Wonderful.
anything that you are looking for that is past a certain date in terms of like deed records, things like that, you have to go to where the archival records are held. And most of that
Mhm.
stuff is it's pretty much anything that is before the Civil War, for the most part, is going to be in that particular archives building. And I'm going to go ahead and share the site that Melissa was just talking about. This is the Tennessee State Archives. This is the African American Research page. Well, if you're in the chat or if you're watching the replay, we'll go ahead and place the link there so you have it. And it's got a number of different things on here. Of course, we noticed the Confederate pension applications. That's another show. Be sure to look at our previous episode on African Americans in the military, so you can understand why that's a kiki and a ha-ha. And then they've just got a number of different things. Historically Black colleges and universities were brought up in the chat room. Absolutely. There's a scrapbook here for Fisk University, which is in Nashville. We've also got a historically Black college university in Jackson, Tennessee. Lane College is there. If you've got people who are affiliated with the CME Church, that's a CME African American or HBCU that's there. So this is just the TSLA, that's what I call it, State Archives site. And I'll go ahead and I'll post the link in the chat. And something else I was also going to bring up as well. I'm trying to think, because there's someone there's.
Can I just ask really
go ahead.
quickly, Mika? Like I was checking this site out earlier. So like where is the African American research? I mean, I didn't select, I don't know if it's under select a page or is it's not, I'm looking at a home page. Is it
Look at
from the home
Library
page
and
or-
Archives at the top. It says Library and Archives, it says Publications, Library and Archives, and Contact Us.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay. And then you go to History and Genealogy.
Right.
And then it should be right there at the top.
Yeah, I just Googled. That is horrible. That I put in TSLA African American. That's what I put.
Well, that'll work too.
It's just funny because when I pull up I'm looking at it on my phone just as an adjunct, and when I scroll through, it doesn't come up on underneath the history and genealogy, which is a shame.
Well, it may be that the mobile menu is different than the one that's that's on the computer.
Yeah.
And the Tennessee State Archives is amazing resource. The number of books that they have there, on that first floor, awesome. Microfilm, awesome. I had a great experience when I went. And it's the building that is in is gorgeous. Parking can get a little touchy because it's not, traditional, doesn't have like a designated lot. You got to do street stuff, but it's still amazing research. And we always have to give the reminder to folks, go local, go actually to the locations, right? Doing research online is awesome. It's great. As we mentioned, Tennessee has us spoiled because they've got a lot of great records, but sometimes you've got things that are not digitized, and there are things that you're only going to find on site. People think that Family Search goes in and they microfilm everything. They do not microfilm everything. They get the meaty stuff, a lot of the stuff that we typically will use, but you can't assume that every single thing in every single courthouse has been microfilmed by Family Search, and potentially that it has been digitized, right? And it's not sitting in what I call threader lingo right now, right? Where you're like, oh, when is it going to come online? And you see the spool. It's in spool lingo. You're waiting for that spool to turn to a camera so you can click it and look at the images. So, let's see. Hold on. I want to go back to the chat room because people are asking a lot of questions.
I saw an article last year that said that the state archives were in crisis for Tennessee because I guess they're just conditions for like some of the buildings. And I was just wondering about funding. How's their funding situation? And if that's getting more people get into genealogy, is going to be more demand. So
they just broke ground. They are going to be building a new building, which should be, they're hoping by 2019, which will have a lot more parking. Because right now, the Tennessee State Library and Archives parking near the building, there's only about 10 spaces.
Yep.
Wow.
Only 10 for a state archive, because they're right behind the state capitol, the street right behind the state capitol. And so, but yes, they have broken ground and they have started on a new building, which is going to be in Centennial Park, and it's going to be near the Tennessee State Museum.
All right, I'm letting y'all know right now, okay? Melissa and Nika, look, don't call me for no bail money because y'all done beat somebody up over a parking spot at the Tennessee Archives. I'm saying it publicly. I'm letting y'all know right now.
But if we wait for like a couple years, we could actually maybe like carpool and like meet down there or like something.
Yeah, wait a couple years because I promise you, if you do it, if you beat somebody up next week, it'll be a GoFundMe on the next BlackProGen episode. I promise you.
My gosh! Oh my gosh! All right, tips and tricks for researching. Of course, this goes without saying, but you know we've got people from all levels watching. Know your county boundary lines, right? Know when things shift, change. I'm gonna put that site up because I love it and it's the best thing ever. And I never remember the URL. I have to always go back to what I'm looking at. Because it's switched. I want to say it went to Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness. That became the URL. It used to be something else. Where it was, it literally shows you year by year how the county boundary lines have changed. And anything else you want to talk about with tips or tricks besides knowing geography and being clear about where you're looking? Because people say, well, I looked there. Well, the county didn't exist then. So that would be important. A huge thing. Yeah.
Tips and tricks. I find I have better success when I work with clients for African American research in manuscript collections, vertical files, school records, actually, because a lot of our counties are actively trying to collect and preserve anything, absolutely anything, for the African American, Black colored schools that were in their area. Before the 1960s, before consolidation and all of that happened, 70s, I guess, there were the white schools and there were the Black schools. They were still having to be records, and the best place to find anything about any of the schools in the community are in the school board minute books. If you can get your hands on the school board minute books, they talk about all the schools, funding, they talk about teachers being hired, and they talk about fixing the schools, whatever they're having to do with any school is in the school board minute books. Also, I said manuscript collections, deed records, court records. The Tennessee State Library and Archives has a huge project going on. It's been going on for several years. They are processing the Tennessee Supreme Court records. If you ever look at a picture of the building, or Nika, you were there at the Tennessee State, the whole top floor. When I was going to school to become an archivist, and that's where I went to school to become an archivist, they took us on a tour of the Tennessee Supreme Court records. They took us to the top floor, the top of that building. And when the elevator opened, as far as I could see, all around me were nothing but shelves and boxes. I could not see any further. All I saw was boxes. That whole top floor is full of them. And African Americans are included in a lot of these Supreme Court records. The index is on their website. You can order copies of the records. And so that's another great place. But mainly check with these local archives, historical societies, genealogical societies, because I have noticed that it's, I don't know, the last, maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years, there's really been an uptick in collecting and preserving African American heritage, which I think is fantastic.
Which it should have been there the whole time, but people are slow adopters. They're slow adopters. And our Ask Mariah, who will be joining us, just made sure that she chimed in the chat room. She said TSLA will PDF the Supreme Court cases and email them to you if your ancestors are mentioned in them, because she's ordered like four cases, and she says they're quick too. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's see. Angela, unmute yourself because you're asking a question. You must be asking James. Okay. James, chime in with your organizational stuff that you sort of shared.
Well, only thing I was saying to Angela, but I'll say it, is that to go to her point earlier about fraternal societies, there's actually a great website that I found called Tennessee. It's TN African American Lodges .blogspot.com, and basically it's a site where they're mapping Tennessee Black fraternal organizations. It's a woman, let me see, Leanne. I'm trying to remember Leanne's last name. But basically, she's mapping all that good stuff in Tennessee, which I thought was a great site. So I'll post the link and folks can check it out as well.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, got to have our resources. I'm going to share this site because, you know, we always like to give you gems for free. If you are not using this, I need everybody to get on Maps of US because it is the bomb. Okay. So you're like, okay, why do I care about this? Because it is it's very clickbaity, right? You got a lot of ads and stuff. But what I love about this is it's got, you know, this is for every state. They've got this, you know, the founding, how many counties or the capital is, website, population, all that. But the best part that we care about is right here. Whoops. We've got this interactive map of Tennessee county formations. And you can literally go from year to year, and it tells you which counties were created, where they were from, right? And this is pre-statehood, right? Because we haven't gotten to 1796 yet. And you just keep going. You just look at this huge area, like where I'm living, Middle Tennessee, big chunk of Middle Tennessee, and a chunk of East Tennessee was all Indian land. So for those of you who are trying to find your needle in the haystack when it comes to Native American genealogy, if you've got, you know, roots in these particular counties, there's a huge possibility that it may be one of those groups. You just need to know who was where. And you just click through. And when you start getting to past statehood, look at how the state starts expanding. See, this is still Indian lands where I'm at, right? Still hasn't opened up as of 1806. You keep clicking through and it literally gives you the boundaries, right? So you've got all of this stuff. You click through and it goes all the way until 1960. And this is for every state's got this. So when I'm confused, I don't know when one boundary went to another, this is one of the spots that I go to. I'm giving you guys all my tricks. This is a trick.
Can I answer? I know Angela's asking James about those court proceedings. Probably everybody hopefully knows this, but any kind of state Supreme Court records, 99.9% of the time they originated in a particular county court system before they got to the state Supreme Court. So if you find a record in the, say, Tennessee Supreme Court records, then you need to go back to that county and see if you can find where the case originated.
Melissa, what about Chancery Court records? I looked at some abstracts when I was in Nashville. Do you all have at the archives the actual records, something beyond the abstract? One can actually go and read sort of the details, I guess.
Yes. Okay. And don't forget loose records. If you don't know what loose records are, when you look at the bound volumes, let's just say, for instance, the Chancery Court records like Angela's talking about, they come in bound, those big, heavy books that they bring you, you know. That's usually part of the story. Ask about loose records. Loose records are what I call the working papers. They include the affidavits, the subpoenas, witness statements, handwritten documents, correspondence. Anything and everything could be in a loose record, and they are going to be filed in file folders and in boxes totally separate from the bound volumes.
So where would one go, or how would one ask for access to see that? What would one say? It sounds exciting, but I would see myself sort of stumbling. Well, she said there was something really good that's loose.
When you are contacting an archive, or you need to check too, not only boundaries, but you need to check locally. Okay, where are the records? Is there a county archive? Are they with the historical society? Because there's no rule or law or standard of where these records are to go. So you just need to find where are the records. When you do that, then I would check the bound volumes. Once you've checked the bound volumes, then you ask the archivist, the clerk, or whoever it is you're working with, do you have loose records? Do you have the court cases, court packets? We've heard of probate packets. Yeah. These are court packets. And what archivists do is they take them out of those envelopes, they flatten them, they clean them, take all the mail out, put them in file folders, and those are loose records.
Wow. Okay, that's great.
And that's something that people should keep in mind exists in other states as well, right? That's not
Yes.
just something that's isolated to Tennessee. It really all depends on how the court system is broken up in a particular state. So in Mississippi, perhaps, you've got circuit clerk and you've got a chancery clerk. You've got to go to the different clerks for different things. As Angela mentioned, they have the abstracts in a book, but you want those loose records,
Yes.
right? And sometimes they discard those. Sometimes they keep them. I've seen loose records for deeds. I've gone to counties where,
Yes.
usually you've got the deed book, right? And you've got, that's usually what we use. I've seen them keep the actual original copy of the deed, which sometimes has more information than what is actually captured in the abstract that's in the books. So I think it should be a practice that everyone should kind of, pursue, ask for loose records at any turn.
And with any type of record in my archives, we have loose marriage records, we have loose deed records, we have loose court records, we have loose probate records. And so they could be associated with any type of record. And one more thing on the court system in Tennessee. The court system in Tennessee is one of the hardest court systems to understand. We have a circuit court. Circuit court can have criminal and civil cases. We have a chancery court. We have a general sessions court. So if you're only looking in one court to find the record, you need to check the others.
That's good advice. That's really useful.
Awesome. So go-to record sets, we've brought them up. One that I have to always give a shout out to because of West Tennessee, Tom Leatherwood.
Yay! I was waiting for that one.
Leatherwood is the bomb. If you don't get anything from the show, and FYI, we have to always remind people, if you miss something, you can rewind when you're watching live, right? You don't have to keep having the show go. If there's something that Melissa said that you're like, you know what, I didn't quite pick that up, take the little dial and move it back. And, you can rewind it 50 times if you still didn't get it. She speaks very clearly, but just in case, right? Go take it back as many times and then you can catch back up to the live show and you won't miss anything. So that's the great part about this. And if you're watching the recording, of course, you can just take it back and rewind it. But Tom Leatherwood, I don't think he ever is going to lose his job because Tom Leatherwood, Tom Leatherwood is the bomb. Okay, when I couldn't remember the actual website for the Shelby County Register, I would Google Tom Leatherwood.
Tom Leatherwood, that's what I do
because his name is
everywhere.
Yeah, like how
everywhere.
Yes. Who else has the name Tom Leatherwood? Like seriously, like who else does? Like I don't know who they are.
I think every county in Tennessee and across the whole United States should have a Tom Leatherwood because they should do this.
Really Tom is a rock star, and let me show you guys why. So Tom, now his website is archaic. You guys don't bag on him, okay? But the contents are awesome. So if you're researching Memphis, right, or even statewide, okay, even statewide, this is the Shelby County Register of Deeds. Okay, so these are the people that document, land transactions, or property transactions. So most folks will say, okay, look, you've got a name search for property records, right? And this goes from 1812, the indexes to present. This is on the register's website. Then you've got a whole archives. You can actually visit the archives, you guys. They let you come in and visit. They love when people come. You've got this middle part that's Tennessee death records. Look at this. An index to 2014. It's for the whole state. That's not for just Memphis. Okay. We are giving you guys some awesome stuff tonight. So they've got divorce records. They've got marriage index. This is for the whole state. Then you've got Shelby County records. Look, we've got birth records from 1874, 1917, chancery court divorce. You've got a ton of stuff. Death records for Shelby County all the way up until 1967.
Nika, you see that probate court loose paper index?
Yes, right there.
Quarterly court loose paper index. There's your loose papers.
There's your loose papers. So if you're looking Shelby County, and remember, this is not just Memphis. Look at this cute little map they've got over here. If you've got folks that were in Collierville, Lakeland, Arlington, even maybe border areas such as Oakland, which is technically in Fayette County, but remember, boundary lines change. So some records, depending on which courthouse was closer, they could have gone to Shelby County. You've got probate wills. Look at this. They even have exhibits. There's even a Martin Luther King. This is super timely considering that the anniversary that took place a couple weeks ago. The investigation stuff is here available for you to look at it. Graves inscriptions.
Hey, Nika, look at the health department milk supply reports, 1920 to 1958.
Tom, when you want it, Tom has got it pretty much. Okay. You can spend hours on this site. And there's Tom. Hi, Tom. I want to go and shake his hand because, honey, even before I got to Memphis, I was using Tom Leatherwood because I had people that were from or lived in Memphis. So if you're on the chat, we will go on and post that in there. Any other go-to records that you can think of that maybe people, maybe aren't using?
I have one that I want to share, and I'm sorry to say it's only for Tennessee residents. Maybe you can get in Tennessee and use someone's like zip code and city. I don't know. It's called the Tennessee Electronic Library. Do you know about that, Nika?
Yes, ma'am.
Tennessee, yeah. The state of Tennessee it's got ProQuest on it. All of the census records, including the non-population census, for free for Tennessee residents. It has birth records, death records. I can't remember everything else. But what happened was the state of Tennessee struck a deal with Ancestry. Ancestry allows Tennessee residents to look at these records for free on Ancestry whenever you would normally have to pay to see it. Tennessee residents get to see these records for free. And I don't know if, Nika, you can pull up that part where they show the list of what you can see, but it takes you to the Ancestry site. You get to see the images for free when you normally would have to pay. There's a genealogy box there, and just click it and then click Tennessee records. And then it'll show you what records are available. Come down, it'll show you what records. Got delayed birth records, death records, North Carolina, Tennessee early land grants. All of that Tennessee residents can see for free, including the images, the actual records. I'm sorry, that's not for everybody. It's just for Tennessee residents.
I'm over here like, oh snap! Look at the wills and probate, y'all.
Yes.
2008. Game, recognized game.
So does that website go through y'all's library system there? Or is this something
you can access it from home? You can access it from home.
It knows where your IP address is.
I was going to say, I don't know how it works. I know that I don't have to anymore because I guess it recognizes me. But used to, they would ask you for your zip code and your city to get in. It doesn't ask me that anymore. So it must recognize my IP address or something. So I thought about asking someone out of state to try it just to see what happens. But it's usually just for Tennessee residents.
I want you to know. I want you all to know that tonight I'm going to go to sleep crying because this is just not fair.
Because you're bad because your state doesn't have it. There are other states that have this, like Kansas. Kansas State Archive set up something similar. I want to say it was either Kansas or Missouri has something that's similar to it. I want to say it's Kansas, where they've got like newspapers. They've got a whole bunch of stuff that typically you would have to go behind a paywall in order for you to view it. But in this case, you do not. So that's definitely an amazing resource. And Karen Galloway, you don't need a library card for this. This is based off of your IP address. Because I just literally just went on myself and looked, and and we always have to go back to this because we don't know who's watching and who isn't. Y'all, please don't forget about Family Search.
Oh yes,
really. And I'm not talking about, because typically you'll go here and you'll say, yeah, I'm gonna go to search records. Yeah,
go to catalog.
But this no. You want some filet mignon? You're gonna take yourself right here, okay? And we're just gonna put it in a county. Somebody give me one.
Put it in Stewart County. I just was doing research in Stewart County the other day, which is next door to me. That's where the Battle of Fort Donelson is.
Okay, so don't forget, right?
Come down to taxation.
Taxation.
Okay, and then I want you to click on tax books. You still think there's nothing there, but you click on textbooks.
Oh, look at
Down. Look at the cameras. Look at the camera.
Magic camera. We want magic camera, you guys. We don't remember the spool of waiting.
And you will not get this when you do a name search. This will not come up when you do a name search.
And I keep, this is why I keep going back to this, you all. Family Search does not tell us. We did this 2 episodes ago. I'm going to keep doing it ad nauseum. Family Search does not tell us when they digitize stuff. They just put it up. And the only way you'll know is if you go through the catalog. And some folks said they want to see Haywood and whatever else. Okay, we'll put in Haywood. That Haywood, Brownsville has been cracking tonight in the chat room.
Yay!
There's a lot of people from Haywood. Let's see what they've got. So we've got deed index records. That's where the juicy stuff is. We've got the index that's available. We've got select deeds online for Haywood County. And remember, you guys, remember your icons, right? You know, spool is spinning. That means you're spinning. You're waiting. We're waiting. But if the camera is there, we want camera. That's browse images online. So you've got the deed index from 1823 to 1881, especially if you're doing slavery era research. That's what you want to be looking at. And then we've got the deed books. We're in waiting for the earlier ones, but you've got the first one that's digitized is 1847 to 1850, and then you've got some select other ones. So don't forget, right? You know, that you want to come and look at this. And some of these records you may look, let's click to see if you have to be at our archives to get to this. No, you do not. Free 99. Free 99. Hey, telling you guys, seriously, listen to me. This is where the best stuff is. It is not in a name search. It is digging, combing, getting that stuff. Anything else? Because I'm going to keep going back to that every single week because there are millions of slaves hiding in these records, but people are too lazy to go through the catalog and to go through the index, and you're basically mimicking the on-site process virtually. But you still want to go on site, and you still want to do that. Anything else before we wrap up? Because everybody's like, yes, in the chat room. they're all excited.
It's not our fault if they're up till 3:00 in the morning on these websites. It's not our fault.
Oh no, I didn't do my job. If somebody's not up that late, no, we want you up super late. We want you almost missing work, and we want you to find. You want your finds to want you to get to your finds. We didn't talk about military. Anything else we want to throw back in there? Because of course Bernice is in the chat room reminding us of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine, Melissa. I think that Fort Campbell is there because, it's halfway in where I'm at here in Kentucky and halfway in Tennessee. And then the Freedmen's Bureau records. I did notice there was a cemetery at one point for the contraband and the soldiers there in Memphis, but you can see it on the map, but it's like nothing there physically for you to get. So I recently ran into that when they were doing the focus for Martin Luther King's 50th in Memphis. So,
I also want to mention Zion Cemetery in Memphis. There is an online database. If you had anyone who you're not quite sure where they may be buried, and they may be buried in Zion, which is a very, very large African-American cemetery in Memphis. There is an online database that will tell you exactly, not only that they're there, you'll see their name in a ledger, but it will tell you exactly when they died, who's the funeral home that took care of the burial, and what row, what section, what plot. And it's wonderful. And this is the original ledger from Zion Cemetery that is searchable and online.
Yeah, that was a huge cemetery in Memphis. I had actually 3 family members buried there because we had a member. I told you Tennessee's a transient state, right? So people stopped off here. They went to other places. That cemetery was in disrepair for a long time, was neglected, but people actually came in and fixed it up. Of course, when we're talking about these state-specific episodes here, you got to remember your census records, your federal stuff, all of that stuff still applies, but you have to kind of season it, add your Tony Shasteries for a particular, for your particular state or your particular area. You've got, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to bring up that we're forgetting. We talked about local research. We talked about researching at archives. We talked about researching at historical societies, genealogy societies. We talked about repositories. I'm trying to think. We pretty much hit everything, I'm thinking. Fort Pillow. We didn't talk about Fort Pillow and the situation that happened there during the Civil War, the number of USCTs who were killed, which of course led to, oh gosh, that was our favorite Confederate general that led the battle at Fort Pillow, which actually took place in West Tennessee. There's a historical site there, actually near Brownsville. For some reason, that keeps coming up over and over again. Yeah. Trying to think of what else besides, especially if you're going to come more recently, don't forget to visit the National Civil Rights Museum. That's here as well. We talked about going to the state archives. Yeah, our friend Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Exit 78.
Yeah, he's quite the character. But we're evolving. The Confederate monuments came down in Memphis. They did it sort of smartly. They transferred them to private ownership, sold them for $1, and got rid of them. That happened. President's Island. You want to talk about that a little bit, Angela?
Yes.
She completely got kicked out. Right as she was talking about President's Island, that's right off the coast of Memphis, on the Mississippi River. That was an enclave. A lot of people actually lived there. Let's see. Karen Galloway says, we're enslaved, moved down Mississippi River between Memphis and Louisiana, or north to St. Louis. Usually, from my experience, I've seen north. Right. I've seen people go from south to north, but I've also seen people go reverse. Angela, President's Island before you get kicked off again.
Okay, very briefly. Okay, President's Island actually is now, it's a peninsula. It used to be an island in the middle of the Mississippi River, and I guess as the river changes direction, it's now a peninsula out. It's adjacent to Memphis. It was a contraband camp. During, I guess it was in the fall of 1864, when a lot of people were making their effort to escape. There was a lot of recruitment in northern Mississippi. There was a raid coming down from Corinth. And people from northern Mississippi, when the troops were recruited, a lot of the women and children followed their husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, and they followed them into Tennessee. They got to Salisbury, put them on a train, and sent them off to a camp that had already been established. The goal was originally to send them to the contraband camp in Corinth, which ended up closing because epidemic. They sent them all to President's Island. People lived on President's Island very late. Am I still there? Okay. People lived on President's Island until the 1960s. There's nothing there now. It's an industrial warehouse, although there is still a cemetery there. And the little schoolhouse that used to be on President's Island for Black children has been lifted and removed and relocated someplace in Memphis, and there's an effort to preserve the schoolhouse itself. But it became a settlement, a post-Civil War settlement for many people, largely contrabands, people from Arkansas and from northern Mississippi, as well as parts of Tennessee, who found their way to the Union line and set up shop, so to speak. They made President's Island their home. And I have ancestors who were there as well. So,
yeah, something else I'd bring up too, just south of where I live at in Grand Junction, Tennessee, there was a big contraband camp that was established there during the Civil War. And we're talking contraband. We're talking about former, slaves, enslaved people who absconded their the plantations they lived on, and they gathered in these camps, and because they were considered contraband. And so there was, as Angela mentioned, there was one at President's Island. There was another one here in Bolivar. There was another one in Grand Junction. And a lot of those folks just stayed in those locations, and their descendants now live in those places, you know, with the exception of President's Island, since that's not inhabitable anymore. But Grand Junction, Tennessee, even if you have ancestry that's in West Tennessee, somewhere close to that, your ancestors may have ended up in a contraband camp. Bernice, of course, she just brought up talking about Bureau of Land Management for patents, land patents, or for homesteaders. Of course, that applies because that's something that's federal, right? We're talking state specific, but that's something as well. If you have a homesteader in your family, or if you're interested in looking at that, look at the Bureau of Land Management website, and also tune into next episode because we're going to be talking all about maps. So that sort of fits in well there. Anything else before we hop to Ask Mariah? I'm going to make sure our person joins us because I'm trying to make sure she's here.
Could I put out a plea?
Sure.
The last day or two, I've been working with actually Fort Donelson battlefield. They have a historian there on site. She is actually working to find some African American Milams, M-I-L-A-M. Toby, I believe, was the man's name. They're looking for burial places, and I'm having a hard time finding much of anything, but African American Milams. But what my plea is this. Our rural archives, I say rural, but our county archives, historical societies, genealogical societies, we are lacking in Black records histories. I understand maybe the reluctance, but I would encourage everyone to please donate copies of your research, family group sheets, anything that an archivist will take, because we need something on file for when African Americans come to research at our facilities. Maybe we'll have something. But I can tell you that a lot of our county archives and records repositories are really lacking in those types of records that can only come from researchers or families.
Melissa, would there be an interest in copies of Civil War pension files?
Yes.
These are federal records,
yes.
but I copy files all the time.
Yes.
And I do concentrate on 2 units in particular. The one that Uncle Cephas was in, the 111th, even though it was organized in North Alabama, Tennessee men were all in that regiment. And to whom or where would we send those records? To you or to whom?
My suggestion always is to, if you know what county, try to get as local as you can.
Okay.
And try to donate them now. Call ahead, make sure that they will accept them, make sure they have the room for them, which, I mean, when you're looking at a small sack of records, but still sometimes. But I've realized since I've become an archivist that we really are lacking. And so I understand the reluctance. You know, I've asked our local I've people of color to please that they donate records or copies or something, you know, so that we can have it, so that 100 years from now, you know, their descendants can find these records.
Yes.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
We have a visitor.
We do have a visitor, and she's not she's not a stranger that just so happened to like make it in, with fabulous hair at that, right? Carmen.
Love that twist out.
I know she's got a great twist out. Carmen, make sure you close the window where you're watching us so that we don't get the feedback. So yeah. All right, you got that. Okay, awesome. All right. This is actually how we've wanted to do Ask Mariah, but she seems to be the only person that has managed to be able to get on the show live with us. So I see the panelists are like so excited. They're about to like eat you up, like literally. But before we do that, Melissa, feel free to stay on because it is a Tennessee specific question. You can stay on, you can hop off, you can do whatever. You might want to eat dinner. My husband just passed me mine. And if not, you can join us. So viewers, it's your favorite part of the show. It's time for Ask Mariah. This is the part of the show where you, the viewers, submit your questions, queries, conundrums, and more to the panel. And we weigh in live with research help specifically geared towards you. Panelists never see the queries beforehand because they will work them to death, and we won't actually have a segment on the show if we give them to them. So you get a chance to see us work together live to help our Genia Budge get past their brick walls. So tonight, question is from Carmen, who is here with Fabulous Twist Out. And her question tonight is, she says she needs help with breaking the brick wall of her great-great-grandfather, Tom Taylor, who married her great-great-grandmother, Virginia Tucker, on January 1st, 1889 in Brownsville. Here we are back to Haywood County, Tennessee. Tom and Virginia had 3 children, Cornelia, James, Daniel, JD, and Cordia, I'm assuming I'm saying that right, her great-grandmother. Her grandmother told her that Virginia died when Cordia was 2 months old in October of 1899. And she says she hasn't uncovered any death records confirming this. And I'll just throw out, remember we talked about major cities in Tennessee having vital records. Brownsville is not a major city. Let me just put that out there. So if you're in the chat room, don't even think twice about asking, well, don't they have, did y'all say that they have? No, they ain't got those. This is the country. Okay. This is the country. I live right by it. Trust me, I know. All right, moving on. She says, it appears that Tom left 3 children with Virginia's parents, Alex and Rose Tucker, in Haywood County, and he seems to have disappeared from family lore. Because his name is so common, I am wary of assigning any documents to him. I literally don't have anything other than the marriage license to confirm that he even existed. Well, you exist, so that's additional piece of information, right? That's another source. And of course, Angela's leaning in. She's like, well, what she got? I see her. All right. So she said what she has so far. She's got Tom and Virginia, had 3 children, Cornelia, James, Daniel, JD, and Cordia, her great-grandmother. The only document she has is related to him is their marriage license. His name is, quote, too common for her to assume anyone else in the county is him. And she has done Ancestry and 23andMe DNA tests. All right. So that's what we have so far. And guess what? We have the person that asked the question here. Unmute yourself, Carmen, so they can harass you and stop harassing me about questions about whether you search for this or you search for that. Hi, Carmen.
I like to call her my Atlas adjacent cousin.
Yes, because
We're
me
Team
and Carmen
Atlas.
we have people in common, but we're not related. So yes.
I'm claiming it though.
Yes.
We're gonna claim it. We're putting out the atmosphere. Okay, go, Angela. I know you're dying.
No, I'm cool. Well, I guess I am just sort of curious in terms of you have the marriage record, right?
Right.
And the marriage record was that 1880. What year was that?
1899, I think.
Okay, so you have not
January 1st, 1889.
1889. Now the children. How close were they? Stair-step children? How close were they in age?
Probably like every 2 to 3 years.
Because I'm trying to get someone who may have been born at the turn of the century, which at least would have put him there for his wife to have conceived. And so I'm trying to put him on the map. And you don't have him at all in 1900 census.
No, I haven't. By 1900, they are living with Alex Tucker, who you got those records from before, and his wife, Rose, which is their grandparents. Their mom had passed. Gone. Yeah, so I don't know where he went.
Well, going back then, back in time, you don't have him in 1880?
I do not. Because there are people who are named Tom Taylor, but I don't know anything about him to say, oh, that's definitely him. There's a couple of people who it could be, but nothing definitive.
And you don't know of any siblings? None.
And I have asked all my cousins and nobody, my grandmother didn't know. They were like, he was just gone.
I was going to just ask, have you gone through your DNA matches to, like, if you tested at Ancestry, have you looked, like, plugged in the surname Thompson or Taylor and see what popped up to see if they have family tree?
My problem with that is I have Taylors on like so many branches of my tree that wasn't necessarily telling me anything either. That's such a common name.
I was going to say that I was looking through some Tennessee Masonic proceedings, and it actually did have a Masonic lodge there in the 1880s, Winfield number 10. And I do see some Taylors here. I don't see a Tom Taylor, but I see a J.L. and a Jacob and a couple ministers. I don't know what minister, who the minister was that married your ancestors, but have you tried running down the ministers or the church or anything like that?
I haven't. That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. So
another question, Melissa, since you know her maiden name, have you looked at her family her and her family before they married.
Are you talking about Virginia?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's Alex and Rose.
Okay.
Who are
Now,
and so I got Alex was a Civil War soldier who he was my great grandfather. I got his pension file thanks to Angela Walton Raji. And so now I know like all of their family history,
right. I guess my question was, is that where they're living? They were living, I guess, before he disappeared. What I'm trying to do, if you know that they were right there in that specific community, then find that family before they married and start to study the neighbors. Have you studied the people just in that little settlement where they lived, whatever the little hamlet or little town was, and then start to look at all the Taylors, all the Thomases, Tommy, whatever, any kind of variation, even Tim, to take a look at that community before they were married, find the grandparents to the children in 1880 and study it like crazy. Okay. Also, was there a city directory of any kind? I don't know what the size of the town.
Ma'am.
No, none at all.
No.
Okay.
We still use a tin can and string for cell phone calls here.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Something else I would say is if the names Cornelia and Cordia and James are not on the Tucker side of the family, look for people with those names with the last name Taylor. Because they may have been family members who they named their children after. They may have come from Tom's side of the family.
Okay.
So that
I haven't seen anybody with those names. So
okay. So it may have been that Virginia just said, "Girl, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm making my baby names." But I would do that. Newspapers, that's like slim pickings in this area. There's not a whole lot there. Let's see, DNA matches, a way to narrow down and isolate Tom's line would be to test any descendants of Cornelia and James Daniel, because you know that you have Tom and you've got Virginia in common with them. So anybody who shares DNA with the two of you is gonna, it's gonna go back to one of those lines. And some of it may be,
Well, so I know Cornelia was a domestic and she died single at 40. JD, wow. I don't know what happened. I just know the cemetery he's buried in. So my great grandmother is Cordia. She was the youngest, and she died when I was 10 years old. So she outlived both of her siblings by 50 years. So I don't think JD had children either. So this is why I'm saying this is a struggle, because it's this man is like a puff of smoke.
And since Cordia is your great grandmother, do you have any second cousins on that line who were tested?
On which side?
From Cordia. So anybody that shares Cordia as a great grandmother with you?
None of them have tested. I do have some.
All right. Because we can't have JD, right? And we can't have Cornelia, we can have somebody stand proxy for Cordia. And they may have inherited different DNA. And so that would be a next step would be, matter of fact, I was going to say, you're going to get you a kit. You might want to try to see if you can finagle one by Friday. And see if you can find one for someone there. Since Taylor is a common name, especially in this area, that's kind of hard. Needle in a haystack. Shelly is chiming in from the chat room. Check the informants on the death certificates. And nail them down. Search all the Cordelias with no last names in the county. Great idea. And you got to remember Brownsville, Haywood County. That's one of those areas where sometimes people were in Fayette County, some people were sometimes they were in Hardeman County. Yeah. So because of Fayette Corner, it's real special in boundary lines. Tyrone Kraft says check prison and jail records. Absolutely, he might have gotten arrested. I even look into Memphis papers. If especially if it was a high profile crime, they will say look for Tom Taylor in Brownsville or Haywood County. Try that combination, because if it was something that was pretty salacious and crazy, it may have been reported in a larger paper, in the state. A couple of people said prison in the chat room.
I'm assuming she has this delayed birth certificate,
She
right?
does.
Okay, because that had a lot of information to me. I just saw this on Ancestry, so
Yeah.
okay.
I'm looking at the guardianship probate records for Haywood County on Family Search. They're there. Did you say something about the kids were living with?
They were living with their grandparents. Yeah.
Okay, I was looking to see if maybe they had a guardian. Their grandparents were appointed guardian of the
okay.
children.
Okay.
So there are
Right,
some
go ahead.
Taylors listed. Not a Tom Taylor, but there are Taylors listed in the index.
Okay.
And you
And
can
Thomas
see
could have
that.
been a middle name.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate, because since his son went by initials, how do we know that JT Taylor? He could be James Thomas Taylor.
Yeah.
We don't know. I would say, I mean, this is one of those things. This is like John Lee,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, everybody named John in my family they're like the hardest people to research. Anything else before we someone mentioned State Sanitarium, Western Mental Health.
Yeah.
We got to think about that as well. That's the mental hospital that services this side of Tennessee. Checking for spelling variations for Taylor. It may not be Taylor, maybe whatever somebody decided that they wanted to do. Family
I would check court records. And the reason I say court records, and in my mind, I cannot remember if a railroad goes through Haywood County. A lot of people got in trouble for jumping train cars. Maybe he jumped a train car and got out of there, but maybe he got arrested. I don't know. So check court records.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would again highlight because I don't know how big Brownsville is, but it sounds like it's a small place. I mean, how many churches did they have? I mean, at that time, look, I would take a look.
765.
I'm sure. I'm
Ooh,
sure.
yeah.
But I'm sure she's already checked 764 of them. So
Yeah.
I would definitely take a look at that marriage record again and see who was it that married them, because that might tell you a lot.
Okay.
I wonder, did Alex and Rose have like good relationships with Cordia? And did she, with her aunts and uncles, like maybe was it the grandparents? Are these the grandparents of her?
She was very close to her her grandmother Rose. Rose actually sent her to Lane College, and she ended up becoming a teacher. And she named my grandmother's name was Rose, and her middle name was Virginia. So that name repetition was coming through even still. And so she was very close to them.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like a lot of fleshing out of some more information that you already have, and try to connect different things, like going on another angle.
Right.
Maybe the grandparents' siblings were involved and maybe knew what happened to Tom. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
You don't know what he did for a living, right?
Mhm.
We ain't got nothing other than I do. And then he walked out the door.
And he did.
He did. Look, he did 3 things in his life. He said, I do, I did, and he gone. That was it. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, Papa Lewis is the same way.
Yeah, Ellen had a great link. This looks like color population 1872, 1873. This is Tennessee Gen Web. She's got that in the comments. Let's see, Melissa's found a H.L. Taylor and Guardian records for Haywood County. People are saying check the AME Church newspapers, mortuary records, and schedules. I know that Carmen has combed those mortuary records for Brownsville. I don't even have to ask her. She is not the Johnny Come Lately. Ask Mariah. She's Miss Exhaustive Search. Usually she'd be like, yeah.
I am stuck. That's why I don't ask you guys, because I'm like, did I do something? Did I miss something? So
no, you pretty much have uncovered every stone. Go ahead, Ellen.
The same person, that H.L. Taylor, that's in the, that's in the 1872 list.
Oh yeah, okay. So a couple of those Taylors, yeah. So Melissa had the Guardian record for H.L.
The
Taylor.
Guardian records are showing H.L. Taylor, guardian of Walter Bond. However, there is also another the same H.L. Taylor, guardian of Hattie Taylor. And there's a W.H. Taylor, guardian of W.L. Bessie Annie I can't tell the last name
Okay.
Taylor.
Click
Yeah.
click on that other link on that same page because there's something else in that directory under those Taylors, and it's H.L. Taylor Farmer. What is R.W. meaning? Rear. I don't know what that means, or what that R.W. stands for. And then it says Maine C.O.R. period Thomas. And there's several Thomas. There's a Thomas that's appearing in that list several times. Under that
Is
Taylor.
which link are you talking about? You're talking about the
on the same
original?
link that she posted on the 1872-73 population. If you click on the link for the Brownsville City directory itself, it's a hyperlink.
Yeah,
And
I
then
got
you
it.
go down that list and just get to the Taylor section. There's some interesting references there, and Thomas seems to be on a line with some of those other Taylors. He's not a separate entry, but his name, there's a Thomas mentioned a couple of times.
Oh,
And
yeah,
Taylor,
I see it.
what does that mean? That's interesting.
There's a legend at the top to tell you what those mean.
Oh, okay.
COR means corner.
Oh, it's probably a direction.
Residents of Washington, corner of Lafayette.
Or something. Oh, it means alley. Oh, okay, it's a Thomas Alley. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, Thomas Alley. Okay, probably. Good, great research though.
Very interesting.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up? And Carmen, feel free to stay for current events if you want to.
I will. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, she was taking notes. I know her. That's what the look to the side was. She took all those notes. And I have to always remind everybody, definitely let us know, which I'm sure you will let us know if and when you do find said Tom. I imagine we'll be looking for him this week.
Yeah.
All right. I imagine we'll be looking for him this week. All right. So, do you have a research brick wall? Would you like help from BlackProGen scaling that wall? Submit your query today for Ask Mariah. The link is in the description of each and every episode of BlackProGen Live. Remember to be specific. Tell us everything you searched so we don't duplicate efforts if you get selected, and cross your fingers when you press submit. You just may get chosen for one of our upcoming episodes. All right. Going into current events, we're hitting on some stuff that happened a while ago, but we want to make sure we get to it. From Vice News, historian and genealogist, and of course, Genia Bud to BlackProGen Live, is Antoinette Harrell has uncovered cases of African Americans still living as slaves 100 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. The 57-year-old Louisiana native has dedicated more than 20 years to peonage research. Through her work, she's unearthed painful stories in southern states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Florida. Over a series of interviews, she's told Justin Fornell about how she became an expert on modern slavery in the United States. So this is something you should definitely check out. This is slavery after slavery allegedly ended, and it was perfectly legal in several southern states. So be sure to check that out on Vice News. Also, there's another thing related to genealogy research from NPR. Jose Lopez doesn't have a deed for the little house at the edge of the dairy farm where he was raised and still lives. Only the stories his grandfather told him about how the house came to be. It began with an agreement between gentlemen 39 years ago. His grandfather, a foreman of the farm, needed a house for his recently divorced daughter Lopez's mother. So he asked the farm's owner if he could have a little corner of the sprawling estate to build her one. Quote, "My grandfather worked on the farm for 44 years, Lopez says, and his boss was a good man. He said yes. In the 4 decades since, the family kept the modest house up, adjusting the floor plan, rebuilding the balcony. Back then, when people made agreements, all that mattered was their word and a handshake. But Hurricane Maria wiped that away," Lopez said. "He knew the storm would be a monster. He didn't expect it to tear off the roof. He covered the gaping hole using wood pallets, tarps, recycled sheet metal. Then a week after the storm, he climbed the hill behind the house in search of cell reception. Using his phone, he filled an online application for help from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, hoping for a grant to repair the roof. But 6 months after Hurricane Maria devastated the island, he says FEMA has yet to approve his application. The problem is the gentleman's agreement 39 years ago. They say I have to justify why I don't have a title to the house, he said. But back then, when people made agreements, all that mattered was their word and a handshake. So basically, we've got Hurricane Katrina yet and still again, and these folks cannot get the help they need because, well, FEMA says that they don't have title to the land. And this also manifested in New Orleans and in the Gulf Coast because you had people who died, their estates never probated. So then that meant that if they had 12 children, this corner of the house was going to JoJo and this corner of the house was going to so-and-so, and they had to break up the houses. Then if somebody took out a mortgage, didn't pay it off, I mean, there's all these different striations, but this still has to do with genealogy, right? Because there's no deed. And so, we've got to, there's just a couple things we've got to keep in mind when we're looking at research. It's tough, sad situations, but this happens more often than not with oil, right? People not maintaining mineral rights. You think Aunt Sally has maintained the property taxes for the land down in Brownsville, and she has not. And thus somebody came and paid the property taxes and bought the land up. This is how areas change. And we all know, we're all watching what's happening with Puerto Rico. They're trying to make it an island oasis, not for the people who are from there. Anything you want to chime in, Ellen, while you have the floor, since people keep forgetting that Puerto Rico was in the state that it's in?
I mean, I've been in the airport and I've had TSA people not even know that Puerto Rico is, that you have citizenship, that you have U.S. citizenship, even if you're born on the island. I had a state, I mean, it's just something that it's come to the fore now because of the whole hurricane situation. There's so much. I mean, my cousins in Isabela, and they're still in a blackout. This is the second, and this is now 205 days for some people without light. It's really terrible. It's really terrible, and it's all it's all family histories. It does go back to genealogy. Keeping track of everybody that we've lost.
Well, and that the other piece of that too that also fits in that we have to remind ourselves about is there's trauma associated with this that is not appropriately processed. I mean, I know people in my family, people in other folks' families who are still dealing with the ramifications of Hurricane Katrina, and that was, a decade more, plus ago.
Right.
And so, definitely if you have the opportunity to provide, if your church has a mission trip, or if you have, finances, or if you have whatever, be sure to be on the lookout for Puerto Rico, because they've been completely disregarded, as well as people in the Caribbean as well, not just Puerto Rico.
And I also wanted to give a shout out to Teresa's blog, because she also put a webpage up of different organizations who are providing support on the island. And people are still fundraising, because it has been the private sector that's really stepped up, sadly enough, more often than not. So.
Yeah. Anything else you all want to add for current events before we wrap up and get into our announcements and whatnot? You guys are so quiet. Gosh. Wow. Okay. I'll roll
I'm just sitting here hating on Tennessee today. That's about it.
As he's checking out the records that we have, right? You notice
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, he's trying to find his little connection.
I've got no, I do have a connection. A very distant one though. But man, I just want to quit life right now. like y'all going through.
You're too young for that, James.
I'm just sitting here disgusted. I'm no, don't get me wrong. I'm happy for y'all. I'm gonna let y'all finish, but I'm just dang, I just don't get that kind of love in my research. No, y'all don't try to hear my problems. Y'all
Come on, don't be messing with Alabama like that now. We got some good stuff coming up. I'll have to sidebar you on that.
Sidebar me on it, please. Put me down.
Well, that's the thing. I haven't gotten super far in Alabama, and I have a great-great-grandmother who was born there. I don't know anything other than her name and the fact that she birthed my great-grandfather. That's it. Grandma Alice just appears, out of smoke with an arm. I have nothing else for her. That's it. But, as Karen Galloway said in the chat room, Alabama borders Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Me and True gonna get the sisters from Wakanda to come together, and we're gonna index everything. Y'all gonna hate a year from now. It's gonna be off the hook. Watch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We got a
Oh
big
my
project
gosh.
coming up, so I sidebarred you on it, and I'll keep y'all posted too, and the viewers as well, because they can probably participate and help on this project. So
Yeah, yeah. And Neff Hawthorne, she was asking if anybody read the op-ed about historians versus genealogists. We
Oh,
had a
that's
we had a discussion at length about that, which I find hilarious that he's talking about Chief John Ross, and I know a black descendant of his.
mm-hmm.
Wonder if he's going to talk about that in the book.
Well, it was very interesting that he didn't talk to any descendants in the op-ed. He just kind of stopped. It was really historical.
Of course he's not, because then that challenges the whole idea, right? Because we don't want to talk about Native
Yep.
Americans owning slaves, and we don't want to talk about them having children with them as well, because that's too murky. We'd rather
Mhm.
just stick with the history, right?
Right.
But
Mhm.
not include all of it. Lord, Lord, Lord. All right, let's go back to announcements, because y'all know I'm gonna get started on the Cherokee. Watch that episode, please, because it's all there. All right, we've got lots of other episodes coming up for you for BlackProGen Live. Don't forget to be sure to set your reminders, as I mentioned earlier, and also you can head to whoisnikasmith.com for a downloadable schedule. Our next episode, mapping your family history. Knowing where something took place is crucial in family history research. In our 56th episode, we'll cover how you can use and create maps and how they can give a huge boost to your research efforts. Join us for Been Around the World and Mapping Your Family History on Tuesday, April 24th. Hopefully, we will not have to change the date based on other stuff that I'm doing. I'm crossing my fingers. But join us on Tuesday, April 24th, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget to tune in to the long-running Research of the National Archives and Beyond, hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Bernice Alexander Bennett, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, check out the African Roots podcast hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Angela Walton Raji. Don't forget to join the conversation, participate in the live chat on YouTube, and that's just been flying by tonight. They have a lot of feedback there. You can also catch the chat too if you're looking at the recording. They started archiving them, so it'll actually correspond with what is taking place in the episode at a particular time. So that's always there, top right of the screen if you're watching on a computer, and bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Also, don't forget to weigh in on Twitter by tweeting us at BlackProGen or use the hashtag BlackProGen. And at this point, I want to go ahead and turn it over to our friend True Lewis, who's going to take us on out.
all righty. Thank you, Nika, for another episode. And we just want to appreciate our viewers, and we want to give a special thank you to each panelist, Melissa and Carmen, for joining us tonight on our 55th episode. So we just want to thank you and keep the conversation going over at YouTube and Twitter. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen.
Hello, everybody out there.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
The unapologetic Black and people of color viewpoint.
The place where evidence tells the stories.